Hello, 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 Scorpio. Well, if you weren't Scorpio, you're a Scorpio now. I know I did Sagittarius. Sagittarius was the last sign, so yes. Scorpio, it is your turn, and as you can see, the behind the scenes, the background, the fabric, the I was gonna say moral something is different, but is that the three of swords at the bottom of the deck? I actually like. I guess I'm gonna use the runic tarot for you. Um, I like this three of swords. What I like about this three of swords is it feels like there's something about like knowing when you're at the end of your rope. What I don't like about this three of swords is that it feels relentless. Hold up, wait. No, okay. I'm like, when I said relentless, I got flashbacks to Rob saying, "Oh, Scorpio loves to be called." I think he said relentless, and then I was like, "Wait, did I already do Scorpio?" Um, but it's like this was a white flag when it was raised, but something or someone did not stop. That's why it feels relentless. But it feels like it feels like this Dayrun Dagaz is going to bring the sun in this situation. So it feels like you are going to get that escape right before like the finishing blow is dealt, and then you're going to be pulled out of the situation. That's the part that I like. I like it's being pulled out of the situation before it is way too much. Um, don't like the fact that it got there in the first place. So I just finished pre-shuffling all of these. So how this works is I'm gonna get you a Lafruma. Ooh, oh, a card fell on the floor. Well, your cards are wanting to talk today, Scorpio. Um, I haven't done this in a hot minute, so I might have forgot. I know I get you a Lafruma. I use either the Runic Tarot or the Crow Tarot, and then I use the Idrisil Norse Divination cards to see who in the Pantheon wants to come out and cosign, validate, or direct. The one that fell on the floor is Hirokin, who, as far as I know, I was going to say a Titaness, a giantess, stronger than Thor. And so, because of that, she was unbeatable, undefeatable. So it does almost read a little bit like, God gives his toughest assignments to his strongest warriors or whatever. Oh my gosh, she keeps trying to slide onto the floor. I could have taken her, but she'll come back out if she wants, if she needs. You know what I mean? Cards do like that. They be like that. Energies be. Oh gosh. Well, now it's Aegir. The top card just keeps sliding off of the top of this deck. Oh, Aegir. God associated with water. Ran's husband. You're Scorpio. Oh, I kind of like you being like the strongest of the water signs. I always say that Scorpio is in an interesting position because Pisces can be like super elusive because there are two fish. It's almost like you always have that fake out, you always have the decoy. Cancer has a shell, but Scorpio doesn't really have anything besides its natural environment. Like there aren't a lot of energies that don't belong there. There aren't a lot of animals that don't belong in the deep sea that go to the deep sea. You know what I mean? But it's rough in the deep sea. Also give Scorpio kudos because everything depends on light. All life depends on light on this planet. From whoever can photosynthesize using sunlight to make food, and then other animals, organisms eat those that can generate their own food. But again, in the deep sea, in the deep ocean, there is no light. But life still finds a way to evolve. And that makes me think again of that the day rune that you've sort of been carving into the ground as you've been subjected to what a lot of people would consider to be unfair. And more than one person should have to bear. So, did not know that this was going to get heavy, Scorpio, but maybe that's the past for you. We're going to get into this. We got East and Calc at the bottom. East and Calc, it feels like not being able to... I feel like you've gotten this message before. But it feels like limitations on self-exploration because you've always had to survive. So you've never really had an opportunity to see what your interests are outside of what's immediately available to you, or you've never gotten an opportunity to sort of like have enough peace to allow the truth of who you are to really rise to the surface, because it's always been one thing after another. If it don't resonate, don't take it, right? Because, you know, I wouldn't take on the, oh, well, of course, Scorpio. Well, here we go. We're talking about night. Turn dark, inner troll. Night. Darkness, like a mood, falls, suffocating as it engulfs all emotions, rupturing their splendor, shading all with the heavy hues of futility. A sudden compression that should be a lesson in depression, but isn't. It loathes and demeans our dreams, not just yours, but those of others. Our inner trolls pose challenges, blocking our bridges out of the doldrums. Evoke the resolve from the lands of the midnight sun. Light will return and dissolve darkness. What's interesting enough, though, this is giving me, like, these feel like mushrooms, and this is like dewdrops. But it's like dewdrops of light. So it's interesting that you're giving me like deep forest vibes and not necessarily deep water. 1 second, Scorpio. I'm going to try to fix the lighting so that there is actually... No, I'm not going to fix the lighting. Because it feels like this is almost Aksunare. Aksunare to me, it's when we experience light in a place where there was always darkness. And more specifically, I guess, it's when we have that brilliant, often blinding dawn in the space where we've always had a dark night or our darkest night. But now light enters that space. So it's almost a different type of sensitivity. And again, with this, I am going to end up using this deck. Because with that day room, that's exactly what you've been calling in. You've been calling in, not only have you been calling in like the sun, you've been calling in a change from night to day. Bottom of the deck is Brahm. And then a giant thorny portal behind that. I'll take both of these. Brahm and Thorn. Brahm and Thorn is interesting though because it makes me think of sweeping up pine needles from a Christmas tree. Today is Christmas as I'm recording this. But whatever holiday you celebrate, I hope you celebrated it in good spirits. Oh, see, I wasn't... You have Bjork under that. And I wasn't going to take it, but now with this Ace of Shields at the bottom of the deck, we have the Bjork right there. So I'm still not going to take it, but I will note that it's there. This is so interesting. What's interesting about it? It's just that, as I was saying, there are things that evolve in the absence of light or in extreme lack of light. So what happens to those? What happens to like the ecosystem? What happens to those creatures when you suddenly introduce it? And in that way, I almost see this person coming up behind you with the axe, and you might think they're coming to, like, off with your head, Queen of Hearts style. But it feels like they're actually gonna, like, cut the swords. Now, cutting the swords literally doesn't seem like it'll do much, because not only will the blades that are in you still be stuck inside of you, but it would also be harder for someone to remove those blades without the hilt, without the part that you can grip onto and not get cut. But maybe it's in. There's almost something, it's like an Eight of Swords energy. There's almost something about dispelling an illusion. And it's not an illusion like it never happened. It might be an illusion in that you've already come out of it, or something has already changed. And then this feels like, because I noticed that, like, there's this pathway in Thorn, but in this same color we see something going this way, right? So it's almost like a Capricorn Aries is giving me goat horns, ram horns. But it's like you already sort of went down, now you're actually on this journey out. But as the blades are removed, it's almost like they feel just as painful. Because it's like they cut on their way in and they cut again on their way out. It is a little triagey, it is a little cauterizy. It's a little field medic, but a field medic that's not like necessarily a licensed and trained physician, question mark. It's like using the best of what you have when there may be facilities that you can use. The Five of Shields. Trying to see, get you to see the shuffle because I don't know. Oop. Okay. Bottom of the deck is the Knight of Pentacles. Oh look, there are 2 days in this. If it'll focus, there's a larger one and a smaller one in the bind room. There you go. It's almost focusing. There you go. See, again, it feels like this is a Fae or a Feo or Fehu or whatever bound with a Dagaz. The same Dagaz that, is here, right? But because the Fae is bound on top of Dagaz, it actually creates a smaller Dagaz within it. But there's something about the Fae being right in the middle that, like, bisects this Dagaz. But again, it's like it's this weird, like, what happens to the environment when you bring light into it, right? And it's not terrible. I think it's actually, I guess, quite interesting because it feels like you find a way to call in light to your situation rather than you like moving towards the light. And maybe it was in that stuckness and maybe it was in that stagnancy that you realized your ability to call something to you in a situation rather than you finding your way out of it. So the Five of Shields came out. We see the Shadow Rune. Talking about a field medic, right? Doing the best with what you have out there. So I was watching something and I learned that these were like compasses. So the shields with all of the runic symbols around them are compasses. And in that video in particular, they were talking about interdimensional travel, kinda. Because it was like there are all these like parallel worlds, and that each pantheon is its own Earth, basically. So like the Greco-Roman pantheon happens on Earth number one, with their creation story and the how the sun and the moon sort of like move and they're gods of like the sea and stuff like that, right? And then like the Egyptian pantheon is Earth number two, the Norse pantheon is Earth number three, like that. Like they're separate. They happen in different, not even different timelines, just like different dimensions. And it talked about travel across those dimensions. And they talked about that as being the compass, that shield with all the runes on it. And it made me think of the Mausolea Oracle of Souls, because in the Mausolea Oracle of Souls, they pull from like King Arthur, Morgan Le Fay, Merlin. They pull from like the Egyptian. They pull from Abrahamic religions. They pull from Greco-Roman. They pull from, did I already mention Egyptian? They pull from a different people. They pull from a few different cultures. And at first, that's what all those runes reminded me of. So I guess in that case, then it would be less surprising. Because then it feels like an interdimensional sort of portal and gateway that like you step through rather than bringing everything to that, regardless of how that, I don't know. But this is also interesting because it's one of the few cards where every shield is adorned. And a lot of the shield cards, it seems like only one shield has that compass on it and every other shield is basic, but it's like every single broken, destroyed shield on this card is a compass. And so I don't know if this is getting a little... It's not even past lifey. Maybe it just speaks to the depth of... I mean, I want to say the depth of despair. Because it's like you couldn't imagine any world, any scenario, any situation where things would be any different. But under that, we have the Knight of Swords, the Ten of Shields, and the Page of Wands. So here's another shield card, actually, where there are multiple compasses. Well, we see some in the back that look fairly plain. I don't know if this is gonna, there you go, focus. It's kind of focusing. But on this boat up front, there are multiple compasses, and these shields are intact. Now, in the Lafruma, that's the Tradal rune. And the Elder Futhark, that's Elks Awaz, I think, but it's in reverse. And that one is typically associated with protection. That protection is interesting, though. Maybe with that in reverse, it's more about comfort than protection. Because I don't know if, I mean, nothing about either one of these energies necessarily say you are protected, you are safe. But there is a lot of comfort in stagnancy, I guess, in that. It's when you make a home. And what did Knight say about a sudden compression that should be a lesson in depression, but isn't? It's almost like you get accustomed to those feelings. Oh, look, there's our Thorn. Thorn is in the bind rune for, was that Tear, Sigil, and Thorn? And the bind rune for this Knight of Swords. Sigil is the sun. That's this light that is sitting in between night and this. It's like you carve the day rune into the ground, and then again it's about turning from night into day. So it's almost like the sun in that case isn't what's being asked for specifically. It's just the means of resolution, right? Like you're not asking in the Three of Swords, that person isn't asking for the sun, they're asking for the night to end. That just so happens when the sun comes, but again, it's like that's not what you asked for. Because this same rune, if it were daytime, the answer would be like the moon. Because it would be then shifting from day to night. So because of that, it feels like the sigil in this, it's almost um, like it's almost negligible. So this bind rune, the Knight of Swords, becomes more about Tear and Thorn, which is, it's something that you give up, it's something that you sacrifice. It's how you make peace when you're in this giant thorny portal. And again, in the context of this, or in the context of where you are more currently, again, use your own intuition, discernment. This might be something that, like a realization that you're approaching, it could be one that you've already had. But this thorn feels like it's the one that's coming out of darkness, but there are so many things that it has to get used to. It has to acclimate to a life above ground. It makes me think of any show that I've seen, a child who was born, or for some reason a child who was like raised by wolves in the forest, or a child who is found in like several floors deep into a basement of a building, and it's a child that's never known sunlight, and the amount of oxygen that their bodies are used to is not very much. And if they were to immediately take that child and put it in the same environment that every other child is in, that child's body would go into shock and it might shut down. So they have to incrementally help that child adjust and acclimate to what is supposed to be the standard. Because again, something about all this, it feels like more than one person should have to go through, or more than one person should bear. I guess it's like if everything is on the scale, it feels like this was on a more extreme side of the not great scale. And so all of the adjustments, all of the difficulty in reemerging, it's all of that readjusting, reacclimating to a life, to a world that isn't as dark as the one that you knew. And it feels like it's some of those ways that you've become really savvy. It's almost like some of your survival instinct, honestly, It feels like some of your survival instincts you might have to sacrifice. Or you may find yourself in a place of like the things that used to work for you aren't necessarily working anymore because it's like the type of people that you're coming across are different. The type of jobs that you're getting are different. It's like everything is different. So it's like if you are no longer, and again, use your intuition discernment, and there is a difference between intuition and discernment and patterning, fear, paranoia, and stuff like that. There's a difference between the divine speaking to us and our minds trying to protect us. But it's like if you were used to people always taking advantage of you, and so you never get, like, you're never vulnerable with people. You never get close to people. You don't trust people to do like their part of whatever. And so you're that like it's better to be on my own. I'd rather do it all myself, blah blah blah, whatever. However, you've had to adjust to that. But now it's like you're with people who are like team players and they're encouraging and they're supportive, and it's like they can be vulnerable with you. And so it's almost like you're in a much more cooperative environment now, and there's some kind of task that is big enough that requires that cooperation. Or it's just simply like there are so many things that you've been carrying that either you don't have to carry anymore or that you don't have to carry alone. I just noticed on the prow question mark of this boat with where everyone has their compass, we see again that shadow room. The same one from here. Oops, not this one. From this 5. So maybe someone did go out and like maybe you are both of these person. You are both of these people. You're both the one that's hurting and the one who's like going out to get help. But it's like when help arrives, all of these shields in this 5 of shields, they're all repaired. We see 4 of them here. But it's like it moves you out of that. But again, if this is comfort, and if you're leaving your comfort zone, it's like that's the difference between like, oh, it's like comfort and it's the difference between comfort and like familiar and comfort as far as like coziness, right? And it's like you're switching, it's like you're going for the cozy zone rather than the space of everything that's familiar. And I think it's something that as you're in that process of readjusting to a brighter life, we'll just say, you learn more and more what you are truly deserving of. And you become less willing to tolerate things that you used to tolerate, not simply because you don't want to go back to that life ever again, but also because you start to realize and recognize like your worth and how you should be treated. You start to realize that it's almost like, again, some of those things that you went through, you should have never been subjected to in the first place. So instead of it being a like, well, that's just how the world works, or that's everything that I know, that's what I'm used to, it's reaching that like, that was never okay. And like, that was not anything that I should have had to whatever. Because that, it's like, that was an extreme. That's not how everything works in general. And then I think that's what gets you to this place with the Page of Wands. It gets you to this place where, as I was saying in the beginning, it's like because you were always in survival mode, you never really got to know. It feels like you never really got to know yourself truly. It feels like you never really got to know what you genuinely like and what brought you peace when you were in the darkness. It's like marginal comfort in a space of the familiar versus things that you actually full-heartedly, full soully are lit up by, motivated by things that, again, like you really, really, really want, or things that really drive you. So this Page of Wands is going after those things. As you're moving out of the shadows and as your compass is being fixed, it's like you reach this space where you end up thriving by the end of it. It's like you start barely surviving, or you start so focused on survival, but then where you end is like truly joy. You get to, again, it's like you get to thrive. So it ends beautifully. And you have Njord, economy, revenue, the sixth of the first realm. I think Njord was the one who was, oh my gosh, I don't know why every time I sit this, and it's just the top card. If I put the card back on top, it'll slide again. The top card slid onto the floor again. Again, Scorpio. I think Njord was the one in Sif, Earth, Fertility, and Family. I've been playing God of War Ragnarok, and Sif is in that. She's featured in that game. And I was actually thinking, like, what if Sif comes out? I don't want to spoil the game, but it's like, it's about family. And this reminds me of someone who I know, who, it's like it wasn't until he met his then fiance's family that it's like it wasn't until he had a different experience of family that he saw his own familial situation with clarity. It wasn't until he experienced something else that he was able to recognize that some of the things that he went through, it's like it wasn't right. And it's not for a parent to do to a child, to their child nonetheless. But it's like it wasn't until he saw anything outside of what was his norm that he was able to reach that moment of clarity. Because again, like, that was all he knew from the moment he was born. And so Sif, for me, it's that it's almost like when someone from the outside is welcome inside, and as a quieter voice, or as the new pup in the house, she just sort of has to adapt to how things are, even though she knows that, like, that's not how it should be. But she is with someone that she loves. And it's for that person to ultimately, at the end of the day, sort of realize or recognize that what they've been subjected to or how they've been treated, they should not have ever been. Njord, I think, was the one who was married off to Skadi. Skadi? Njord of the seas, Skadi of the mountains, and they try to make it work. So I guess both of these are about, like, trying to make something work. I don't know if it does necessarily in either case. But I guess Njord, it's like Sif sacrificed and blended into the family. It's like Sif got herself accommodated to the night because she couldn't pull Thor like into the day. Or like Thor was going through his own giant portal, and she was there with him while he was doing that. Njord, on the other hand, is almost like kind of selfish. Again, my knowledge of the Norse pantheon is very incomplete. But just like what's coming to me is like Njord was kind of selfish. And in his dynamic, it was like Skadi was the one that always had to accommodate. Right? Again, Skadi of the mountains, Njord of the seas. And it's like they spent all their time at the sea. And it's almost like if we go to like a more quote unquote traditional dynamic, it's like, well, as the wife, Scotty just had to do whatever Njord wanted. And it's almost just like, well, when are we going to go to the mountain? When are we going to go to the mountain? And maybe it was that, like, oh, we'll go next time. We'll go next time. Oh, don't worry. Like, we'll spend a few more days here, a few more weeks, a few more years. But it's like for Scotty, I guess eventually she has to reach the point where she realizes that Njord is never going to go to the mountains. And if you want to go to the mountains, you're going to have to leave. So it's very complex. But Njord on one hand is economy and revenue, while Sif on the other is fertility. So it feels like it's like both sides of Earth energy, where it's like literally the environment, the landscape, but it's also like money and resources. It's also interesting that we have the 6th of the 1st and the 4th of the 1st, and there's the 5th in between them. Njord or Njörður. Njörður is a Vanir god from the realm of Alfheimr. He lives in Ausgarður because of the great war between Vanir and Aesir. Njörður commands the elements of fire and wind and has command of the sea for seafarers, so it's good to call upon him for seafaring and travel in general. How does that work? Commands the elements of fire and wind and has command of the sea. Fire and wind would be the Knight of Swords, Page of Wands energies. Not least, he is a god of materialistic well-being. If the seeker has questions related to economy or income, Njörður is definitely a good card to have in the spread, along with cards from the world of dwarves. Njörður is father to the siblings Freya, goddess of love, and Freyr, fertility god of the Vanir. I did not know that. He was husband to Skadi, a giantess goddess of hunting from Jotunheimr. She chose him for a husband, but it might not have been a successful union, as Njörður stays close to the coast and she is drawn to the mountains. The union comes to an end. If Freyr or Freya accompanies Njörður in the spread, his influence is affirmed. Both strengthen his monetary attribute, and his son Freyr indicates a successful voyage the seeker might take on. If Skadi accompanies him, however, the seeker is advised to pay attention to his motives and feelings towards money, and look out for greed, as it might cause turmoil. So now let's go back a few pages. Balder is in between, by the way. Balder is the 5 in between the 4 and the 6. Sif is a major goddess of Ausgarður. She can be seen as a personification of the fertile farmed land, as her husband can. She is wife to Thor, god of thunder, life, and fertility. Her name means family, and she is thusly associated with family and marriage. She has one son named Ullr, from a previous relationship with Njörður, father of Freya. She is famed for extreme beauty and grace. Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. We have Njörður in the first wife? I didn't know that. Like I said, my knowledge is incomplete. I can't believe we got Njörður in the first wife. We got the first wife. Oh, lords. She has one son named Ullr. I know the LL makes a... I can't do it in Icelandic. It's like a TL sound. From a previous relationship with Njörður, father of Freya, she is famed for extreme beauty and grace. There is a story about Loki cutting Sif's beautiful hair off in malice, and Thor wanting to kill him in a vengeful rage. Loki makes amends by having new golden hair made for her by the incredible crafts of the dwarves Brokkr and Sindri. Her hair is associated with the fertility of earth, with golden fields of corn and plants. Her presence in the spread represents a good and strong family bond and a happy and prosperous family life. If she is accompanied by her husband Thor, the prospect of fertility is greatly enforced. This is interesting, because it's like if Njörður is accompanied by his current wife, Skadi, the seeker is advised to pay attention to his motives and feelings. It's like not great. Look out for greed, as it might cause turmoil. If Sif is accompanied by her current husband, then the prospect of fertility is greatly enforced. I wish I knew how things like ended between these two. Like if things were great, why are they not together? Oh my gosh, what is this first wife energy? What is this first wife energy? I mean, I guess that completely flips this almost. Because I went into this, it just seems like the assumption is that it's always been night for this Scorpio. But now because of these two, it's like, it could have been daytime. Scorpio could have had an amazing life, full of all of the things that, it's like Scorpio could have been closer to the other extreme. Scorpio definitely could have experienced the other side of the spectrum. But then something happens one day, someday, and it's like all of that is just gone. And it could be like a almost Cinderella stepchild situation. Because neither one of these are with, like, they're not with each other, and it's giving like first wife, first husband energy. And then it's like the new parental figure doesn't give that same love and attention and affection as the first one did. And that almost in a way makes this feel even more devastating, because that's a Scorpio who knew and then who lost it. And the thing is, it's like with a person like Odin. So wait, Sif, is Sif the mother of Freya and Freyr? Is that what it's saying? No. She has one son from her previous relationship with Njörður, father of Freya. Who is the... Who did he have them with? Did he have them with... He ain't have them with Scotty, did he? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's different altogether. I was gonna say, because like with someone as powerful as Odin, like he can dissolve a marriage and then be like, you're going to marry my son Thor because the children that y'all produce are going to be whatever, who knows. Or maybe it was like political. I mean, I don't think it said she was a giantess, but still, I think she was what I'm already getting mixed up and confused. It's almost like when love gives way to something material. But it's like he married Freya as his wife. Hold up. Yeah, he married Freya. So Njörður would be his father-in-law? Question mark. I mean, but with the Allfather, is anyone the Allfather's father? I don't know. Maybe that's why he put it with Scotty. Or he put Njord with Scotty to make both of them miserable. I don't know. We don't have to get into all that. This is a changing family dynamic, but it brings forward like a financial sort of success or stability. So maybe it's just realizing that maybe it could be that like there are some people who you have a lot of love for in your life that for whatever reason play an actively antagonistic role in your life. Or it's like it's someone that you have to remain small for. You can't be too successful. You can't be too smart. You can't be too beautiful. Or they're going to get mad. They're going to get jealous. And then they're going to be unpleasant. And so maybe for a long time you choose to forego your own happiness for that person that you care for deeply. But maybe there comes a point where it's like you have to do what you need to do for your happiness and your success. Maybe one day you realize that as things are, your happiness and their happiness cannot coexist peacefully. And so maybe you make the choice and decision to separate yourself and to focus on what makes you happy, to focus on you being able to provide for yourself, to focus on the things that bring you joy in life. And you just have to, it's like that, for whatever reason, is the way that you have to go about your life. And if that's the case, then it's like other people's perspectives of their own life and their own journeys and what other people can or can't do, it has no bearing on you. Like, you shouldn't allow someone else to be like, oh, but that person is your fill in the blank. You shouldn't treat them like that. And it's like, that person is my fill in the blank. They shouldn't treat me like this. We should be able to both be happy. They shouldn't be intimidated by my beauty, by my success, by my entrepreneurial spirit, by my drive. They should celebrate me and want me to move forward, but they don't. And so I have to do what I need to for me. And maybe someday it will change, maybe it won't. It's very unfortunate, but I guess maybe the Three of Swords now comes as a question of how much is too much. And at what point do you leave? At what point do you do better for yourself? So, sorry this wasn't necessarily light, Scorpio. Um, but you deserve, not only do you deserve to be happy, not only do you deserve to be successful, how you define success, how you truly define success, or how you will come to define success after you are more acclimated to the day and less bound by the night. Because how you define success now may change. Um, but, like, not only do you deserve that, but you also deserve people who know that you deserve that and who support you in your pursuit of that, who celebrate you in your success. You know? So with that, Scorpio, I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way you find. I hope you the courage and the strength to make those difficult decisions when they are yours to make. And I hope that if you do have to make a difficult choice and decision, that maybe there will be a day where it's not as difficult, or that there will be a day where you can appreciate having made that choice. Sometimes people come around. Sometimes we find other people to show us what we should have had, and although it's unfortunate, we just realize and accept the fact that those who can't celebrate us for whatever reason, who won't, that we're, for our own health, happiness, and well-being, that we're better off with that healthy boundary that is set and enforced. So, until next time, Scorpio.